Hello, everyone. Welcome back to DJ and the Zooms. I am Jay, and today we are once again joined by my friend Linus. Hi, Linus.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
I'm very happy to have you on. As you know, this unexpected break is getting longer and longer, and we're all struggling to cope with missing F1. So I'm very happy to be able to have this discussion with you today.
Yes. So, get into it. Let's go.
Yeah. I know, so some of you people listening to this podcast may remember that Linus is Max Verstappen and a Lance Stroll fan. And so, as an Aston Martin supporter, I asked him to come on to talk about what's been going on in the beginning of the season for the green team. And it's certainly going to be a bit of a painful moment for you, isn't it?
I didn't think you were also going to bring Max up. I'd, I didn't need that as well.
Well, I haven't, well, yeah, now that I think about it, Max hasn't had the best early start of the season, but I never think of Max as someone who's struggling because
No, it's
somehow I
Red
have
Bull.
exactly. Red Bull is struggling, which makes a lot of sense because they've lost a lot of people recently. And so I suppose the structure is changing in the team. But I have
Yeah.
such absolutely blind faith in Max that I think he's going to be all right no matter what.
I hope so. I think it really depends on, of course, with the new engine that Red Bull have had. It's been a whole new, not just people behind the scenes, but also, this has been such a huge change for so many teams with the new rules, and then even more added on when you think, well, this is a brand new engine that they've never ran and that they've worked on. And so all of it combined was always going to take time. Like, it doesn't surprise me. I kind of had a bold prediction in January that Max wouldn't win a race this year. And then
Mhm.
I kind of went back on it and I was like, no, that's too crazy. And right now he needs a lot just to get on the podium.
Yeah.
So like, it's kind of crazy, but also isn't in a weird way because Red Bull have been sort of knew that it was going to take time.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, well, yeah, but also last year has shown us that you can never discount Max. So who knows?
Yeah.
We're only three races in at this point. It feels like it's been a long time, but it's also because we've waited so long and because the tests started earlier, so it feels like the season has been going on for quite a while. But it's only been three races, and a lot can still happen um, between now and December. I'm
Absolutely.
also holding on to hope, so we can all be in that boat.
Fingers crossed.
There's also the fact that I really like to still talk about Red Bull. There's also the fact that I love Laurent Mekies and I want to see him do something good with his team. I've said time and again that Red Bull are the Disney villains of Formula One. So as a team, whether they do well or not, it would not really faze me. But I love Laurent. I love Isaac. And I love Max as well. So obviously I want to see them do well. And it's very important to me. And I hope you can give me your opinion on that. It's very important to me that they can show that the management changes were positive in terms of how people feel in the team as well as how they perform on the track.
I I think that's a really quite good way of like kind of breaking it down. It's sort of like the tension that there was obviously there for a while when we had Newey leave and Horner leave and Jonathan Wheatley leave and all of a sudden looked like Max was going to go, and this whole talk of if George Russell gets ahead of him in the standings by a certain point, then he can leave, kind of has died down, because I think the positivity around the team has gotten better, like
Hmm.
the camaraderie. But there's also an interesting thing to be made that all of those guys knew how to win, and everyone that left has had won so much, and now you've kind of got Max there and Hannah Smith as well as kind of the two that feel like the only two left of the really kind of strongly best of the best Red Bull times. And then the
Hmm.
kind of the rest of them is all sort of learning. Like Lauren Mekis did the Racing Bulls to Red Bull promotion, like the young driver, like Isaac Hadjar did. So it's like they're kind of sort of, it feels like it's a very different Red Bull team than what it was when they were winning. And I guess in that means it just takes time, because you've got to remember that it's not like when Christian Horner first came into Red Bull that they won straight away. It took them a bit of time before Sebastian Vettel started winning multiple world championships. And then it took, like, I know it took a long time to see Max have a championship winning car. There was a lot of years where Mercedes had the best car. So it's all sort of a patience game a lot of the time in Formula One.
Yeah.
It's just how patient are the teams, because the teams aren't, these drivers and aren't really accustomed to being patient, because they go through junior formulas where it's like you have 1 year to win something, go and win it. Whilst now it's like a 5-year plan or whatever some of the smaller teams say.
Exactly. And
And
that's very interesting because it's something that I don't remember if we talked about it together, but you certainly know that I've been saying for quite a while that we saw how long it took for Lando and McLaren to work together to build something and to bring them back to the front. I'm firmly believe that we're seeing something similar happen at Williams. And so we have examples of things that are happening behind the scenes that we're not privy to, but that eventually will come to light and to work for the team.
yeah, and it's also interesting that, like, you've also got the examples of where it's not worked, like Renault, for example. Renault and McLaren were kind of fighting for best of the rest in like the 2018, 2019, 2020 period with Racing Point. And one of those teams last year ended as double champions and the others ended last. With, like, they went the opposite ways. But you're right, McLaren for years, like Carlos Sainz left McLaren to go to Ferrari because at the end of the day he was never going to say no to Ferrari. But also, were McLaren ever going to get to winning? It took them a while. You know, it's a
Hmm.
sort of, how long is it going to take for certain people? How long can they have? Like, if you look at Aston Martin, Fernando Alonso doesn't really have that time. Or you could say an Audi, for example, a Gabriel Bortoleto is someone who can take a few years for them to get towards the top because he can develop with them.
Hmm. Yeah, there's also like an element of sort of this the secret sauce. Like you need the right people at the right time in the right conditions. So certainly
Timing,
there's
yeah.
also that. Yeah, timing.
Timing
Mm,
is everything. Because
definitely.
how many, really talent, Max Verstappen's a 4-time world champion, Lewis Hamilton's a 7-time world champion, Fernando's a 2-time. There's arguments you could put them in any order depending on what way you looked at things, but that's just about timing. Lewis slotted into Mercedes at the perfect time, whilst George Russell went to Mercedes at the time where they dropped off, and now it's finally now got it right. Charles Leclerc hasn't ever really been given a car that's capable, and that doesn't mean he's not capable of winning world championships. Whilst McLaren got it right at the perfect time for Lando and Oscar to have a shot at winning it. And I think that's kind of, it's a lot of, it really does need to fall your way a lot of the time to be
Mm.
able to do it, because everyone is good enough, because that's why they're there.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, does it matter that much, or is it a matter of building something and sticking around?
it's interesting because there's the two great examples of that. There's the Lando example of someone that stuck around and waited and it came to him. But then you have the Charles Leclerc side where it's like he's continued to wait and it hasn't happened. And
Yet.
like, yeah, I don't know about yet. But yeah, I know what you mean. It is a sort of, you have to, decision making is such an important one. Daniel Ricciardo, when he left Red Bull for Renault, was such a big move. And then people always forget about how good Daniel Ricciardo was in 2020 at Renault. And then he left again to go to McLaren because he was like, actually, McLaren are going to win stuff. He was right. The problem was he didn't suit that car. So you also have to do what suits you as much as, or it might be better for me to, we've seen it with the Red Bull drivers. It might be better to be in a Racing Bulls than a Red Bull if that car suits me better, even if the car's slower.
Definitely. Because also it allows you to show what you're capable of, and there's also the fact that you're in such a how would you say that, precarious position when you're in a Formula One car, because so many people want that spot, and there's only 20 seats, 22 now, and so you could be thrown out at any moment, basically, and we've seen it a lot recently. I don't know how cutthroat it used to be. I can't imagine that it was kinda in the
Well,
past.
that's a big thing is the talent pool, how much better it's got, like how much stronger. Like yeah, I can go and look back at like 2017, 2018, and there were some great drivers, but then a lot of the field you're like, were they in Formula One, or like what did they do in Formula One? Whilst now you've got like Pierre Gasly is like an example of someone that if he'd been in Formula One 10 years ago, you'd probably be looking at him as being in a top three team
Mhm.
because but now it's such an incredibly high standard that, like you just said about 22 drivers, but there's a number of drivers we could mention who should have been in Formula One and never got a shot. um I like you bring up Teo Pourchaire. Teo Pourchaire is a great example of a guy that did everything to be in Formula One. I'm sure would have done a great job, but didn't get it. Felipe Drugovich is another one. Um, and then you get guys like Isaac Hadjar, who maybe you didn't expect would be in Formula One compared to some of the other guys, and then he comes in and is like this revelation as the Rookie of the Year last year.
Mhm.
Um, so it's about getting a chance as well, is a big
Exactly,
one.
exactly. It's probably about making the right choices also, in your earlier career, to put yourself in a position where you could have the right opportunities closer to Formula One. Do you know it's just thinking of a funny thing. I just started a new job, and I was talking to my boss because it's just the two of us, so we have lunch together, and we were thinking about when the company picks up and we become extremely rich. And he said we potentially would buy an F1 team. And I was like, I have it all figured out. Yes, let's start our own team, and we'll get Théo Pourchaire and Victor Martins, and it'll go so well. And he was like, yeah, no, that's not what we're going to do. But yeah, okay. But yeah, you see so many people who could have done so great, and they just never get the opportunity. Um, it's just a little infuriating, but
And it's also sort of it's so hard to predict how people are going to go because, like, Logan Sargent, for example, I was someone that kind of was like, I think Logan Sargent's done enough to be in F1. He didn't feel like he was just, he's in F1 because the American boom and let's get an American driver. Logan Sargent's time went disastrously. Nick De Vries, I really like Nick De Vries as someone that watched him win the Formula E World Championship in 2021 and he won F2. He comes in at Williams, does this incredible job, gets us to Alpha Tauri, it's a disaster. But that's not a
yeah.
reflection on him not being a good driver. He wasn't good in F1 at that time.
Hmm.
So I think it's it's crazy how many people could get a shot and they just don't. And then kind of some people come in and get a shot and it doesn't work, and then others actually thrive better than you ever thought they would.
Yeah. Do you think, now that you mentioned Nick De Vries, do you think that with his experience in Formula E, that he would do better in today's F1 cars?
I personally think that Nick De Vries would have done a lot better had he teammated Alex Albon in 2023 and it not been Logan Sargent. I think Nick De Vries in a Williams, I think, would have done quite well. I don't think he suited the Red Bull environment because that was a weird time where Red Bull went from being AlphaTauri was the junior team to we've got Pierre Gasly, or now we've got De Vries, now we've got Daniel Ricciardo. And it was
Hmm.
like this weird run of, that's not the junior team. These are all guys that are old enough to, and like star enough names to be able to be in higher things. Which is kind of what Red Bull have now gone back to, that young thing with Arvid Lindblad and Liam Lawson, and Nicolas Solov coming through into F2 now. But I think De Vries, would he do better now?
Yeah.
I think probably. But then
Hmm.
it's weird because then you kind of like, there is a lot of people that it's like, would Formula E drivers do well in F1? And then there's sort of that, where's the pace level is a thing. Because I think Formula E drivers, there's no doubt that people in Formula E and people in IndyCar are damn good at driving. And like, I think Pascal Wehrlein is a fantastic racing driver, and he was in Formula One a long time ago now, like 10 years ago, and he
Hmm.
never really got shot properly. Um, there's It's just where do they get into it? Because we just said there's only 22 seats. Who are they? Not only who are those guys usurping on the current grid, who are they usurping from the F2 field and the people
Yeah.
that would want to come back? It's crazy how it's great that there's so many good championships around that if you don't make Formula One, you can still be in these other top series, because it's just insane, the talent. Like, the talent has grown so much.
Exactly.
Um,
Or maybe it would
like
be interesting to say you don't stay long in Formula One, and then you get to explore the other types of motorsports. Because there are a lot of F1 drivers who say they'd be interested in doing this, doing that, rally or endurance or whatever. Um, and maybe also saying, well, Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, they've been here for so long, and maybe it's time to give the spot to someone else, to someone younger who's coming in, because there you see also the fact that there's people trying to get through the ranks, and then you just once you've won F2, then what do you do? Like you're
yeah.
locked. And yeah, so this just
And it doesn't help when the 2 extra seats that get added get picked up by Valtteri and Checo, 2 multiple-time Grand Prix winners who have kind of, like, wasn't it last year where like Carlos Sainz was the 4th oldest driver on the grid, and Carlos Sainz is like not old, but that's where he was because all the talent was so young. But now he's like dropped down that list because Checo and Valtteri have come back.
mhm.
Um,
Which
and now
makes
we're getting
sense as
like,
well, because of course Cadillac needs people who are
it
already
makes total
experienced.
sense.
But
it's
also,
just it's just also like, it's kind of that, like, it makes total sense for a team and they should kind of stick with it for a while. But it would be nice to see some young drivers, but we kind of got that last year. We had this weird run in Formula One where no young drivers came up and no one changed, and then 2025 we had like nearly 6 rookies, if you wanted to include Doohan and Colapinto and Lawson coming back and stuff. Yeah, crazy.
which was so nice. I mean, I remember being really excited about all these new faces coming in and how the sort of excitement that comes with expecting and not knowing how they were going to do in this new series and this new sport, discovering new teams and ways of working.
It felt new.
Exactly, it felt new and it was exciting.
And you want that in a new season. You don't want a new season to feel exactly the same as the last one, otherwise it's not new. Like, we
Exactly.
kind of got, that was so, and everyone always talks about the 2019 rookies, Albon, George, Lando. And then we had the 2023 rookies, which was Piastri, De Vries, and Sargent, and only one of them was on the grid by Abu Dhabi 2024. It was kind of cool to see so many, and they've got so much personality, and it's really hard to also differentiate the rookies in terms of because like Antonelli right now is leading the championship because of the car, like he's in the best car. That's fallen perfectly for him. Would Ollie Behrman be able to do that? Potentially. He's great. I think Ollie Behrman's fantastic. Isaac Hadjar, I've said it, was the Rookie of the Year last year. And through all of that, we're not bringing up Gabriel Bortoleto, who won F3 and F2 back-to-back. It's a crazy level that not only did we have a strong level as it is, that these guys are coming up. And it's making guys like an Esteban Ocon, for example, not look as strong because he's being beaten by Bearman every week. But
Hmm.
that's not because Ocon's got worse. That's just because there's this influx of talent that's come in that's like insanely good. But he's still someone that you put in a car and he's going to do a decent job. It's just crazy how the levels have gone up since we've had all these like new younger drivers.
Absolutely. And I wonder how much of is something that I was thinking like a very long time ago. The fact that the rookies or newer drivers, they haven't had as much time to get used to and get into sort of a rhythm with the the older regulations and the other cars that from the last year and before. And so maybe they're more adaptable and they get used to the new ones easier and faster than the older drivers who've been through kind of maybe already a few regulation changes, but also were really used to how it was.
I kind of go back and forth on this. Like, I kind of can't really work out which way I think it is because I do kind of think there's a positive for the young drivers that they aren't as used to the older cars, so they can adapt more. But then it's also like they're kind of doing another rookie season. Like, they've just done a rookie season of learning these cars, and now they've got to learn another one. Um, it's why it made all the sense in the world that Mercedes put Antonelli in last year, because it allowed him to
Hmm.
get used to the world of Formula One, and it allowed him to get used to Mercedes when they weren't going to win anything, and if they were going to have a chance at winning races, they knew they had a driver in George Russell who could win. Let him get used to it, and now Kimi's absolutely started the season really suited to the car. Um, and he's there and it's worked. Had Mercedes not put Antonelli in last year and put him in at the start of this year, he's not going to be leading the championship. So, like, it shows it worked from a Mercedes point. But it's a fair point to kind of go, because then there's Arvid Lindblad, who's only done testing in last year's car but hasn't done a Grand Prix in it. So he's gone into this season where he's a rookie both in Formula One and with these cars, which is kind of I still can't work out whether I think that's beneficial or not.
Uh, you've only had 3 races to figure it out, so it's not enough
I
data
can't
to,
I
to
can't
sort of
work it
know.
out at all if it's beneficial for him or not.
I guess we'll see by the end of the season how he does.
And he has a good benchmark in Liam Lawson. Like,
Hmm.
Liam Lawson's a good benchmark for him to know. If he beats Liam Lawson, then we know he's doing a good job. If he doesn't beat Liam Lawson, that doesn't mean he's doing a bad job. Like, you can kind of, in a similar way, I guess, to Logan Sargent coming to Williams and having Alex Albon as a teammate, that was a good benchmark. Um, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. I had a dream that I was dating Liam Lawson last night. So it's interesting that we talk about him now when I don't talk about him that much usually.
I am the person that brings up the drivers that no one else talks about. That's what I do. So, like,
Thank
Lawson's
you.
coming up.
Thank you for
L-
that.
Lawson and Ocon have been mentioned.
And
Sargent and De
now,
Vries.
Sergeant and DeVries. I certainly wasn't expecting to talk about Sergeant and DeVries today, but why not? Do you have any obscure F1 drivers that you'd still like to talk about today? Um,
That's not.
that's not, and um, you're not gonna avoid talking about your boy Lance. So
Well, I've tried
let's
for
talk about.
23 minutes to not talk about Aston Martin.
And congratulations, you almost did. You almost succeeded. But I have a one-track mind, and we're talking about Aston Martin. We don't have to talk about Lance, but we are talking about Aston Martin. How are you feeling? Your feelings about the team so far?
Um,
Please try not to cry.
I was gonna say, like, answer it with a question of, am I shocked? And I don't actually know if I am or not. Like, I had so much hype because, like, I went in. We always had a joke this with like my friends that were like, "Oh, wait till 2026." So I started a counter of how many races till 2026, and then as I got through 2025, and as bad as that was, I kind of went, actually, I didn't think 2025 was going to be good, and it wasn't. So it met my expectations, so I couldn't be disappointed. And I kind of go into 26 thinking, we better win. And like, not even better win, because I'm not someone that, like, I think I mentioned it when I came on last time. I wasn't going Aston need to win everything, because how good are
Hmm.
Mercedes and Ferrari and McLaren? Just, can we see a win, or can they be on the podium? Like, that would be really nice. And then all these news articles of their engine doesn't work, it's vibrating, the car's like not working. I like Williams, for example, didn't show up at Barcelona, and then I'm doing graphics that I make for my own thing of like practice total lap times, and I get to like day 2 of the Bahrain first test, and Williams are above Aston Martin. I'm like, Williams didn't even show up to the test before, and they've done more laps. So what is going on? And then I I kind of watched a video where someone said that Aston were going to finish 9th in the constructor, and I said, "What? That better not happen." I think I'd take that now.
At
Because
least it's
like,
not 11th.
well, yeah, because right now we're having quite the fight with Cadillac, which I didn't expect. I didn't expect to see us fighting Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas. I very much would have took that in 2021 when they were at Red Bull and Mercedes. I don't think it was planned to do it here, but it's been a disaster. Like, it's been a mess on all sorts of. They've really PSG'd it, which is a football reference, but I'm bringing it up. It's that reference of, let's put all these all-stars together and realize it doesn't work. And then for those who don't know about PSG, they got rid of all their all-stars, and a year later they won the Champions League. So like, and they
PSG
might
is in
win
the
it.
Paris team.
Yeah,
Okay,
like
okay, okay.
they were a team who built themselves around having all these huge names, like Aston Martin have done with all the big facilities and Newey and, you know, everything else. And Jonathan Wheatley might go there apparently at some point, which is another big name. But it hasn't worked. Like, not one part of the plan has worked, and it's gone way worse than anyone could have expected.
And that's maybe something that we should mention about the fact that Red Bull has lost all these people who supposedly know how to win. But you can see that, and I'll be honest, I was scared when we heard that Newey was going to Aston Martin, and I thought he's going to do a great job because he's a brilliant mind. But it turns out he didn't do it by himself.
I always had I think because I'm a little bit like, I don't believe until I see that they're going to win. Like, I do this with any sport team I like, that even if I know they're the best team, I'm like, they're not going to win. So Adrian Newey, because I'd seen him deliver, you know, when Max was in the start of his career, Adrian Newey, as great as he is at designing a car, needs an engine. And this was always going to be an engine formula. The worry for me is that him and Honda didn't exactly work very well together, and kind of Honda built their own engine, Newey built his own car, they put it together, it didn't work, and it's caused this massive issue. Honda, I'm like really torn with Honda, because like they gave me the Max Verstappen championship, which Renault would never have delivered, but now they're like giving it back to me and go, well, now you're not going to score a point all season. And people are celebrating Fernando Alonso finishing 18th because he finished the race. Like,
Right. And like yeah.
we're gonna cheer when we get into Q2 in Qatar. And it's like, well, why is but it's kind of how it's become. It's crazy. I'm a little bit numb to it, in all honesty. I've kind of gone, it's just not going to happen. I think I'm kind of sad, because I kind of, for a while, have kind of felt like this was going to be Fernando and Lance's last year. Like, I felt that for a bit. And so I was like, can we at least go out with a good result? Like, give me one more result. I haven't seen Lance Stroll get a podium in green. Like, he's not got a podium in an Aston Martin. And we've been wearing the Aston Martin green since 2021. The top I'm wearing is from 2021. And it's just sort of like, how has it gone so wrong, and why has it gone so wrong when Lawrence Stroll has put all this investment in to make this sort of really great team, and they're not great, they're not good, they're like the worst team I've seen ever. Like, I've seen some bad teams, but I've never watched Formula One in however many seasons, like 13 seasons I've been watching, and woken up to Australia media centre stuff saying, well, if we do more than 20 laps, our hands are gonna like get permanent nerve damage. Like, it sounds like something out of a film. Like, it doesn't sound real that, like, oh, someone's tampered with our car and now it's gonna like affect us like physically. It's like, it's crazy. Like, this is the pinnacle of motorsport.
Right.
And, you know, like, if you don't want to be quick, don't be quick. But don't start now having a thing where you can injure people that drive your cars. It's just crazy. Like, it's such a mess. And like, I think the biggest worry for me as an Aston fan was when they said 5-year plan. in 2021 and said 2026 is going to be our year, and then at the start of 2026 said, well, this is now the start of another 5-year plan. It's like, what are
Yeah.
you on about? I try and laugh about it. It humors me because when I do my podcast, I always start from the top to the bottom in terms of constructors order, the reverse. So I always start with Aston Martin, so I get them out the way. But I've said it. I've like, do they even deserve to be spoke about? They've been that bad. They're like in another league. We've got like the Mercedes league, then the guys behind, then the midfield, and then Cadillac and Aston on their own little battle. And how is that possible with Cadillac being brand new?
Yeah, and as you said, like Lawrence Stroll has seemingly tried so hard and put so much money into it to try and get the best people in the. I was about to say in the best conditions, but I fear this is something that people don't in Formula One don't want to talk about, and yet something that is extremely important, and that is the mindset, and the mindset of the team and each and every team member. And if the company is a place where it doesn't feel good to work, it's just not going to come together.
I sometimes worry that Aston have made themselves too big and they're not capable of holding on to it, because that team was so damn good for so long as Force India, because they were known as this team that had nothing, played the underdog role and nailed it. Was now they're in an exact opposite side where they're like, well, you expect you to do well. You should be competing because you are facility wise the newest facilities, the biggest facilities. You've got these personnel of people who've won. Like, it should come, but it shows that it doesn't come naturally.
Mm-hmm.
They have Fernando Alonso, who is one of the greats and has achieved so much. And it's just, but also weirdly with Fernando, and we always people talk about McLaren Honda. That's another example. McLaren Honda, both McLaren and Honda went on to win championships in the 2020s. But it took them to separate. And how long did it take? 6-7 years? Like McLaren Honda was a disaster, and then McLaren needed a further few years, and Honda needed a further few years. So, like Aston Martin, Fernando Alonso hasn't got this time. Lawrence Stroll hasn't got this time. I don't think Lawrence Stroll has the patience to. Is Adrian Newey going to stick around for another 5-6 years? Probably not. He was team principal for all of 40 days. Like, I genuinely, he's been like, it's been a disaster. It's been the number one word people can use, and it's just sad because I don't think people want to see Aston Martin win. And you've kind of said Red Bull are like the villains. I feel like Aston Martin are going to become that with the people that they have there. But I think people would have been content with them being like 5th or 6th in the constructors. I don't think them being last and below Cadillac is kind of a crazy sort of, like, what is even going on?
Yeah.
Um, I
And
mean,
I said, like, does not make sense.
yeah, the only positive, the one positive I can take from all of it is I know there'll be less slander on Lance because the car's so bad that I'm not seeing as much slander, because it's like, we can't really slander the guy qualifying last when the car is the slowest. Whilst,
Well, not in the context of the sport, but in the context of the geopolitical context. We can slander Lance Stroll.
but I'm talking more about the racing. I mean,
Yeah.
on track, like, I've not, like, same with like anyone, but I think when you have such a terrible car, it's a lot harder to judge unless you're Logan Sargent against Alex Albon. But other than that, the large majority of the time,
No, in this
it
context, it's obvious that the car is the problem.
cars it's just a mess, and I don't see how it gets sorted anytime soon. Like, this could be quite a long project when we've just gone through a 5-year project to get here.
Right. But like, I I wish I knew more about the technicality of everything that's going on at the moment, be it with the regulations, the the engines, and so I feel like I'm really in a huge blur of I don't know what can be the problem and where it can come from. But yeah, the FIA has already mentioned that they're changing some stuff in the coming weeks, I guess. Um, and we know that upgrades keep coming throughout the year. So far, I just try to keep in mind that we're still really early in the season and that anything can happen. And we've seen teams go 180 and go from being really bad to being really good. So who
Well, yeah,
knows?
the last new regulations, 2022, after 3 races, Charles Leclerc was 40 odd points ahead of Max in the championship, and like Max is going, well, I've only finished one of the 3 races, so how am I going to win it? And then he goes and wins it by 100 and however many points. So you're yeah, absolutely. It's sort of it changes so quickly, and that's kind of what's exciting about it.
Mhm.
I think the development race of is it going to be like who is going to break into that Mercedes Ferrari battle? Is it going to be McLaren, which we would expect because they've won, and Oscar could have won Japan, so are they kind of getting closer already? Like it's a when, it's more of a not if, it's a when a Red Bull coming, but like who else is coming? Where are Williams? Because Williams is supposed to be here as well. They're not getting as much. We're not going to slander Williams as much as Aston because Aston's at a whole different level. But Williams are the same who've been telling us we're going to be great, and they've gone backwards.
Yeah, but aren't they all saying we're going to be great at first
Well, this
and then see?
I'm really glad you said this because I've been saying this for a while. Like when I was thinking last year, I was like, I swear 8 teams have told me they're going to win in 2026. Only one could win, so which one of those teams is going to be eighth? And that's like a really bad season. And then you've got Aston Martin and Williams who are not even there. The one thing that I find fascinating, the thing I find most fascinating about this season, kind of goes back to Red Bull and their engine. And why are Racing Bulls doing so well? Like, because I would have expected if Red Bull were good, Racing Bulls would be good. If Red Bull is struggling, Racing Bulls would be struggling because of their engine. But
Yeah.
Red Bull, we know, we're struggling. But Liam Lawson's flying, and Arvid Lindblad had a great start to the season. So it's kind of like, is it more, even though we talk about the engine for Red Bull, is there something else going on? Because why are Racing
There
Bulls
must,
performing as well as they are?
and it's been a little while that Bulls have been performing, if not better, at least
Yeah, but
surprise.
now it's even now they're finishing ahead of Max.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I suppose, I mean, aren't they supposed to be building different cars? Like,
Yeah, they are, but that's what worries me. I was like, how has the second team built a better car? Like that shouldn't happen. Um,
there must be something, but hasn't there been less movement within the team at
there
Racing
has,
then? See,
yeah,
so maybe there's something about people are working together better for now at Racing Bulls.
yeah. It's just kind of crazy to me that there's this like we've always, for years there's been that talk of is it better for them to be in the AlphaTauri than be in the second Red Bull seat? Like we've known that, but like people joke or put Max in the Alpha in the Toro Rosso, like put him in the Racing Bulls. It's a promotion. It's not a promotion based on star power, but I'd I'd like to know why um, there's sort of kind of feels like a disconnect between those two teams when they've kind of been connected a lot of the time. I don't really look at Racing Bulls now and go, oh, that's Red Bull's second team. It's more like that's Red Bull's kind of next door neighbor
Mm.
because they're right by them. And it's interesting, but
Could
I
it be then that because the real difference was between Max and the three of them back in the day, could it be that just Max isn't into it as much as he used to be? Or that the
I
car
think
that Red
that's
Bull has made doesn't suit Max as it used to?
I, I think both of those are kind of correct because I think why would Max be as It's the same like with anyone. Fernando Alonso. Why is he going to give Fernando Alonso best of the best in that car? Why is Max going to give best of the? They will always give 100%, but then they're also not going to be. We're not going to see the best version of them because the best version of Max is a car that he likes to drive. He doesn't like these cars, and he's kind of been saying he's not going to like these cars when he was winning every single race. So
Yeah,
like
for years he's been
this
saying
has been
what's coming is
a
not good.
yeah long time coming. What do you actually think about these cars?
I am on the fence. I really like the fact that they can overtake easier now, because this is something that I've been hoping for since I started watching Formula One. So I was hoping and craving more competition. So I'm glad that it has brought us that. But like I said, I don't have enough information on the technicality to be able to really say this is, it's happening uh, in a good way and for good reasons, or it's happening because the cars can't keep up. And so they're sitting ducks, basically.
Yeah.
Um, but so far, I have had fun watching the races, even though they were very early in the day. They, uh, the McLarens have been struggling. Oscar has only started one of them on the three races. And even with that taken into account, I've had fun. So I do agree that changes need to be made specifically for safety, because this is always going to be my number one
Yeah.
concern. Um, so this is something that we need to figure out ASAP. Other than that, I'm not mad at it. And something that I've been thinking about for a really long time, and I don't think I've ever really mentioned on the podcast, or at least never given it the time that it deserves, is the fact that F1 being the pinnacle of motorsports is also the playground where new technology is invented, created, and put into action for the first time, that can then trickle down to the rest of society until road cars. And I think it's important that we bring more clean energy in Formula One, and that we find ways to do it. And of course, there's going to be trial and error, because that's the point. But I think we need to push for that in F1 so that it can be um, perfected, and also put forward publicly for everyone to see, and then that it can influence all constructors of cars, and then be brought on for everyone and make the world a better place.
Yeah, that's sort of exactly kind of the point. That's what Formula One have been trying to do, is to make it, so people use this stuff so it kind of gets passed down. It makes sense. The thing I've not really spoke about this much, but I'm kind of bringing it up because I never really hear it anywhere. Um, is of course the talk about qualifying of, is qualifying as good as it was? Because it's these cars that like slow down on the straights and all this stuff. My only thing is as great as those cars were, like the cars that would, the fastest cars that we had, McLaren last year, Max's Red Bull, Lewis's Mercedes, these incredible cars that like is fully flat out. The more downforce those cars had, the quicker they were, but the worse the dirty air was. So the races were horrendous. So like, we want these incredible cars, but if you want these incredible cars, the racing's going to be terrible because they can't follow. So it's sort of this weird thing where it's like, there needs to be a balance, but if we have too good of cars, the racing isn't good. If we have cars where they're not as quick and they have this sort of super clipping thing or whatever it is, it kind of makes it a little bit more interesting, but it depends what you want. Formula 2. Formula 2, Formula E are race. People say, oh, that racing's way better than F1. Well, it's way better because the cars aren't as good. And like, it's because even I have struggled to understand certain parts of this. Like, I'll get people that have come to me in the past trying to learn about things. I'm like, I have no idea. Like, I'm learning as well. Like, these are stuff that I just didn't know was a thing. Um, and it's weird because I do love qualifying. Qualifying's always been my favourite thing, and I do kind of feel like qualifying isn't as exciting, but I also think qualifying isn't as exciting because Mercedes are so far ahead. Part of the reason qualifying got so exciting was because it was so close, and that's how it's always going to be. We can't judge a regulation on Mercedes dominating because they did that for 8 years, and Max did that for 2 years, and McLaren had the fastest car from Miami 24 to the end of last year. It's got to be judged on the actual product of it. And there are definitely benefits and not like good and positives and not good things. But what is funny is I haven't gone into a race. I remember so many times last year, like I'd get a message from someone going, "Are you looking forward to the race?" And I kind of go, "I'm looking forward to it because it's F1, but I think it's going to be boring because I know no one's going to overtake." I
Yeah.
didn't go into China or Japan really and go, "Well, I know it's going to be boring because no one can overtake." Because I'm like, well, at least we're going to see something.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if that something is great or not, but we're going to see something. I'm not just going to be sitting there watching Japan 2025, which even though Max won that race was absolutely diabolically bad.
Hmm.
Like, at least we saw something. And I actually think the cars have already, just from Japan, showed that it isn't straightforward overtaking. Australia was a track that was always going to do that because there's so many straights. We get to Japan, notoriously difficult for overtaking. George Russell could not pass Lewis Hamilton or Charles Leclerc for so long. Kimi Antonelli, it took him ages to get past Lando. We knew how much quicker he was than Lando, but he couldn't make the pass. So I think it just depends what circuit it is. I think these cars are very circuit dependent. I really believe, I think it's worked in F1's best interest that Saudi Arabia got cancelled because I think that track could have been an absolute disaster with these cars. Like the straights they have at Saudi and the amount of corners, that was something that I went into the season thinking that could be bad. So they've kind of weirdly got um even though they might bring it back. I saw something about they might bring it back towards the end of the year to kind of have an extra race, which
I don't
would
think they
certainly be
will.
interesting. Would certainly be interesting. Could you imagine like if they don't announce it till like 2 weeks before and Kimmy's like, well, I was winning the championship next week, but now there's another 25 points, so I have to get a further gap. Um, but yeah,
No, I think it would be too expensive to reorganize at on such short notice, and and too dangerous because Saudi
they
Arabia.
also need, they also need to work it out in general for Qatar and Abu Dhabi. Like that's the thing F1 needs to work out is as soon as possible. They can't wait till Las Vegas to decide because that really affects all the championship stuff. You need to know going into the last 5 rounds how many races there are
Exactly.
to do their whole as it stands championship graphics that they've been doing for way too long.
I guess we'll see. There's something that I wanted to mention because you were saying that about the difference of having the best car or having a slightly worse car but more racing. Because it's something that I've heard, and I think it's an ego thing because there's when you watch the race, you can't really see how fast they're going. When you're watching the race on TV, like it's whether they're going 300 or 250 or even 200, like the difference really isn't visible. And so and the exciting part is the racing the between the cars more than the speed itself. It's interesting to know, oh, we've been able to build a car that can go this fast in this short amount of time, or that can go this fast in a corner or in a straight or whatever. But for the sport and the racing itself, I think it should not be so important that we don't care about the rest and the entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's a racing series, so the racing has to be good. Otherwise, we might as well just do time trial.
Yeah,
Like, just everyone go out and put whoever do one lap, and whoever's the quickest wins. But that's not the point. Like, it's supposed to be who can, like, sort of get their elbows out, which is what going back to Senna and Prost was so good at, was that, let alone now where we've got Max and Charles and George and Lando and Oscar and Carlos and Fernando, and the list goes on, and Lewis, because there's so many great drivers. Um, Sunday's the main event. It's the thing that people, that's the one that matters. So even though I love qualifying, and there are parts where I do think, does it look as good? Well, if we had last year's competitiveness, where the gaps in qualifying were 8 tenths between first and 20th, then it would probably be more entertaining. That's a kind of thing you have to look at. Is it actually the cars? No, I don't know if it is the cars. Is it just simply because we want to see people close and we want to see people battling? I don't know. I'm looking forward to Monaco. That I
Um,
am, and I have never looked forward to Monaco before. So these cars have won for that. Like, I'm intrigued to see how Monaco's going to be. Um,
yeah.
so yeah,
And like when you see like recently we've seen especially Lewis and Charles battling, really overtaking each other again and again and again. And I've said this before, every time I see that, be it within the same team or whatever, when you see just two drivers fighting each other, the only thing that I can think of is they must be having so much fun. Because in the end, that's also why they do this, because they love the
yeah,
racing as well. And I
yeah, and
want what interests me in the sport and in everything in my life is the people, the characters, and I want them to be happy and I want them to be having fun.
yeah, and exactly right. When they race, it's exciting for everyone involved. I mean, it might scare the team principal if they come close to coming together, but other than that, everyone's going to enjoy it over watching. As much as I appreciate defensive driving, I don't need to watch someone like Alex Albon. I think you made this for Alex Albon, Canada 23, like just have an entire field behind him to finish seventh and no one does anything. No, I want to actually see, George and Max and Oscar and everyone swapping positions, and that's throughout the field. And like even if it's for like P15, like if Arvid Lindblad is fighting Nico Hulkenberg, well, I'd rather see that than just dawdling around behind each other, because it's
Exactly.
like, and we got some good battles in Australia from that. Like, we didn't just, like, Liam Lawson and Sergio Perez didn't seem to care that they were fighting for, like, 17th, because they were like, and that's the point. You should care even if it's not points, mentality wise, it all matters, because they're all sportsmen who want to be at the top, and
Exactly.
they all learn.
Exactly. Well, I think this is where we're going to stop this because as I said, I forgot that we were recording today and I have plans for the end of the afternoon. So, and we've been recording for almost an hour already.
Yeah,
So thank you
that's kind of what
so,
I do.
so. No, I love this. And it's always so interesting talking to you. And I've had a lot of fun recording today. And I know I had a lot of fun the last time that we did. So thank you so, so much for joining me today to record.
Very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And to everyone who's listened until the end, thank you so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and do everything that we do when we love a podcast and its creator. You can now, I've learned recently that you can also boost on YouTube. I don't know what that means, but if you find it out, don't hesitate
Can
to
you give it
hype.
to Aston?
Uh, I mean, and yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. I love you. Bye.